Hello, good day everyone. Today we were discussing about the understanding culture, society, and politics. So our lesson for today is about the concept, characteristics, and forms of stratification system using sociological perspective. What are those? Those are the functionalist theory, the social conflict theory, and then the symbolic interactionism. So our MELCs or most learning essential competencies or competency for this particular lesson is to explain the concept, characteristics, and forms of certification system using the sociological perspectives. So connecting the previous lesson to our new lesson. So last time we discussed about the forms, function of education in our society. So education help you to acquire knowledge, protection. You cannot easily be fooled by someone if you have a good education. And also education acquires satisfaction, skills, better future. That's why you are studying today para magkaroon ng magandang kinabukasan, stable job, and then power also, kapangyarihan. Okay, now, what is the connection of this particular lesson to our new lesson about this pyramid? To give you further idea for you to be able to answer the concept, we have here the question. What do you think is the effect of online learning to different social classes if this type of learning opportunity becomes standard in Philippine education during the time of COVID-19 pandemic? So basically, may mga tao o grupo ng tao na hindi afford ang online class. Okay? Siyempre, sila yung mga nasa lower class. Hindi katulad ng mga nasa middle class, ng mga upper class na meron silang opportunity to buy gadgets that can help them to para makapag-online class. Okay? And then, syempre, the stable internet connection na hindi kayang ma-acquire ng mga nasa lower class. So that's why our lesson for today, yan, is the pyramid or social classes or the social stratification. So we have here also activity. So sa tingin ninyo, sino dito yung mga nasa kulay orange? Siyempre, yung nasa kulay orange, sila yung mga number 2. Yung mga nakatira sa squatter area, sa ilalim ng tulay. Okay, and then, yung kulay green, so yun yung number 1. They are the employed or mga professionals like doctors, engineers, architects. And then the last one is the upper class. So, syempre yung number 3. Yung may-ari ng PAL, yan si Lucio Tan, si Henry C. Okay? Or those are the what we call elite individuals. So now, stratification, strata means layer. Stratification means layering. So that's why social stratification refers to a society's categorization of its people into rankings of socio-economic tiers based on what? On factors like wealth, income, lahi, race. Siyempre, yung education na meron ka, and power. So kung susamahin natin lahat yan, okay, those are what we call the social desirables. The wealth, power, and prestige. When we say prestige, this is the evaluation of your status, your profession. Okay? So, common basis of social stratification is what are those? Yun nga yung tinutukoy natin kanina. Wealth, property, gender, access to political power, sila yung mga senators, congressman, congresswoman. So that's why social stratification is the term used by the sociologists to describe the system of social standing here, okay, So, we have here the fundamental principles of social stratification. Number one, it is characteristics of the society. So, not simply a reflection of individual differences. So, paano yan? Okay, so when we say it is a characteristic of our society, okay? So when we talk about society, it is a group of people interacting to each other. So meaning to say, katangian talaga ng isang lipunan ang may social stratification. Layering, okay, in their it is the identity of the society. Basically, social stratification is built in the society itself. It is not anchored to our individual differences. It is anchored by our society. So kahit na saan kang lipunan, kahit na saang bansa ka pumunta, meron nangyayari or merong social stratification kasi nga katangian na siya mismo ng ating lipunan. Next, it persists over generation. So, it is passed from generation to generation. It is universal, but it's not standard. It changes over time. So ever since we talk about history, laging may layering. Okay? Nung early civilization, di ba? Sino yung mga artisans, okay? Yung mga elite individuals. So it persists over generation. Okay, kahit na magbago ang mundo, meron at meron pa ring social stratification. Next. It is universal but variable. So, kanina, sinasabi natin na katangian na ito ng isang lipunan na kahit saan ka magpuntang lugar, merong social stratification. Pero, plus, okay, each country has its own stratification. Each town, each society, each culture, but it varies depending on their society or kultura. Okay, nagbabago siya. Depende sa kung anong kultura ang kinabibilangan mo. Hindi naman katulad halimbawa ng caste system sa India, 'di ba? Hindi naman siya katulad ng sa atin na open class system tayo. No, it involves not just inequality but beliefs. Social stratification is there because of the beliefs of the society. It is present kasi naniniwala sila sa lipunan na dapat may upper class, may lower class, may middle class. So, hindi lamang siya basta-basta inequality, but also the beliefs system. So, we find it discriminating sa iba kung ano man yung kanilang stratification, but wala tayong magagawa kasi yun ang paniniwala nila and it works to them. Okay, next, social classes. Social classes, also called class, a group of people within a society who possess the same socioeconomic status. Besides being important in social theory, the concept of class as a collection of individuals sharing similar economic circumstances has been widely used in consensuses and studies of social mobility. So basically, social class meaning the group of people based on their socioeconomic status divided into three: the lower, the middle, and the upper stratum or class. So we have here the social mobility. So social mobility is the movement of persons from one position to another in the stratification. So hindi siya palaging pataas ang movement. But the thing here is may movement na nangyayari. But basically, this pertains to the idea that people have an equal opportunity to end up at the top of the certification system. Dapat lang na may equal opportunity. Kasi ang social stratification doesn't create sana social inequality kasi nga bawat isa ay may opportunity or oportunidad na makapunta sa upper stratum. Okay? That anyone can reach the apex or peak of the hierarchy. So, social movement. Now, meron tayong tinatawag na meritocracy, a system in which social mobility is based on personal merit and individual changes. Kaya may movement na nangyayari pataas because of the meritocracy, the achievement of individual. Okay? So, meron tayong dalawang tinatawag dyan. The achieved status and the ascribed status. When we say achieved status, a status that is acquired or earned as the result of personal accomplishment and merit that serve as a reflection of ability, choice, or personal effort. Example, ikaw ay nag-aaral pa lamang. Working student ka, and then naging, dahil sa pagtsatsaga mo, okay, you have your achievement, naging teacher ka. Okay? Achieve status. And then the second one is what we call the ascribe status. Means a status which is not achieved on the basis of merit or skills. It is something which you are assigned at birth. Okay, halimbawa, ipinanganak ka mayaman. Okay, ang ascribe status can be at the lower, upper, middle. Hindi, okay, when we say ascribe status, hindi ibig sabihin nasa upper class or upper stratum. Okay, ipinanganak kang anak ng may-ari ng ng mall, ng bangko, and pwede rin na ikaw ay ipinanganak na nasa lower class. Okay, yung mga nakatira sa squatter. So, meritocracy, achieve, and ascribe status. Now, let's go for types of mobility. One, horizontal social mobility. This is the change of position of a person to another person. Okay. Okay, so this is the change of position of a person to another person of the same rank. Like for example, okay, teacher 1, na-promote ng teacher 2, teacher 3, horizontal social mobility. May movement pero horizontal siya. Example also, chemistry teacher. Nag-resign ka sa trabaho mo, okay, nagkaroon ka ng trabaho ulit, but may kinalaman pa rin sa chemistry. So, social or horizontal social mobility. And then the second one is vertical social mobility. Happens when a person moves from one social class to another. Like for example, si Manny Pacquiao, diba dati walang-wala sila, and then hanggang sa naging senator siya. Okay, ano pang halimbawa? Working student ka, naging teacher ka, naging inhinyero ka. So, vertical social mobility pataas. But the thing here is, hindi siya palaging pataas. Okay? Upward movement in social class may be through education, nagkaroon ka ng trabaho, or marriage. Okay? Nakaasawa ka ng kabilang sa upper class or middle stratum or middle class marriage. Kaya nagkakaroon ng upward mobility. And then, downward mobility. So, lowering of class brought by economic setbacks. So, paano ito nangyayari? Meron kayo dating restaurant. So, kabilang kayo sa middle class. But because of pandemic, na-bankrupt yung inyong restaurant, nagkautang-utang kayo, so maaaring bumaba yung social class na kinabibilangan mo. Illness. So, mayaman ka dati because dahil nagkasakit ka, okay, naubos lahat ng pera mo sa pagpapagamot, nagkaunda-utang-utang ka, so, lowering of social class. Okay? Next, prestige and esteem. Okay? When we say prestige, refers to the evaluation of the status. The prestige does not apply directly to the person, but the social category to which persons belongs to. Okay? So, for example, neurosurgeons for doctors, there are few neurosurgeons in the Philippines. Very few. Okay? If you are one of the neurosurgeons in the Philippines, this gives you the prestige or the evaluation na ang gagaling ng mga neurosurgeons. Okay? It is not directly to the person, but the profession or the category. So, sa madaling sabi, kumbaga ito yung level ng impact ng title mo. Okay? STEEM naman, parang kapal ng mukha. Ayan, confidence. Okay? Refers to the assessment of our role behavior. The regard in which one is held depends on how well he carries out his law. So this is expected in neurosurgeons. For example, you are expected to exhibit such behaviors, skills, okay, or skill ka sa ganitong bagay, critical thinker ka. Kaya usually, kapag nag-invite sila ng mga speakers, ang tinitignan nila yung prestige at STEAM. Okay? Prestige, ito yung level ng impact ng title mo. While STEAM is the expectation on how will you carry out your role. So, prestige and STEAM. Now, system of social mobility. We have here the clause, impose rigid boundaries between social groups, limit interactions between members who belong to different social groups or occupying different levels in social hierarchy, resistant to change in social roles. And then the second one is the open, mainly based on the achievement, allowing more flexibility, social mobility, maybe upward social mobility, and better interaction. So example of closed system or the caste system in India. Okay, ito yung halimbawa ng closed social mobility. Okay, our closed stratification system because people are unable to change their social standing. So there is no movement na nangyayari. Okay, caste system promotes belief. O, sabi nga natin kanina, di ba? Sa fundamental principle of this social stratification, beliefs, destiny, and the will of higher spiritual power rather than promotion of individual freedom. So people born into caste society are socialized to accept their standing for the rest of their lives. There are no opportunities to improve one's social position. If kabilang ka sa mga outcasts or what we call the untouchables, ikaw ay street sweepers, latrine cleaners, kahit na may talent ka, kahit na matalino ka, hindi magbabago yung social class na kinabibilangan mo. Ipinanganak kang outcast, mamamatay kang kabilang sa outcast. Closed system siya. Walang nangyayaring movement, walang nangyayaring changes. Okay? Next, ayan, closed system of certification is the India's caste system. Next example of open or what we call class system is social classes. Okay? Which is ito yung stratification na meron sa Pilipinas. Okay? Which is the upper class, the lower class, and the middle class. So, 2% yung mga nasa upper class, yung mga elite individuals, 15% yung middle class, and 75% yung mga nasa lower class. Okay? So, the base or the lowest part of the pyramid of social classes. Okay? What we call the lower class. So, ang basis kasi natin dito para masabi natin kung saan ka nabibilang is number 1, basically your annual income. Kung ikaw ay sumasahod ng 10,000 per year. Okay? So, the base lower classes. So, basically, ito yung mga tao na nasa squatter area, at saka yung mga indigent people na nasa liblib na lugar na hindi naaabot ng tulong or ng ating pamahalaan. Those are the lower class. And then, this is the part of social classes, mostly professional, individuals, or groups of people like lawyers. So basically, professionals sila. Doctors, managers, owners of small businesses in the locality, and executives of who work in the corporate world or etc. So those are the middle class. So meron tayong tanong, ma'am, ang mga OFW ba ay kabilang ba sila sa middle class? Depende sa kanilang income. Depende sa kanilang annual income. Okay? Next. This class is the societies described as elite individuals or group of people that are most prolific and successful in their respective areas. The upper stratum. So basically, ito yung mga individuals that mayroong annual income na umaabot ng million, okay, or 500,000 a month, a year, okay, billion. Yan. Example nga, sila Chris Aquino, sila Manny Villar, ayan, nasa upper class sila. So, ayan, kung makikita ninyo sa picture na yan, ano ba yung concept na gusto nyo iparating sa inyo? Okay? Yung mga nasa upper class, so basically have a higher income. Kung ikukumpara natin siya sa mga nasa lower class. Kung babalik na rin natin ang pyramid. Okay? So, the class system, which is yung social class na meron sa Pilipinas, individual can change social class in the society. Kapag nasa lower class ka, you can be at the top. Okay? By the meritocracy. Okay? Flexible social roles and increased social mobility, ascribe status and personal achievement, okay, meritocracy, are combined in a way that allows for some social mobility. So, ito yung sinasabi natin. Ayan, the social mobility movement na pwedeng mangyari sa'yo. So, example of open system of certification is the social class sa Pilipinas. Now, bakit nga ba merong social stratification? What are the reason? First, because of functionalist theory, okay, or this structural functionalism by David N. Moore. Okay? And then the conflict theory, the symbolic interactionism. Now, let's go for functionalist theory. Functionalist theory is stratification exists because it serves important purpose or function in the society. It emphasizes that all members of the society performs different roles based on their ability. So, it is functional because, okay, given na kapag mas importante ang trabaho, mas nagkakaroon ng reward itong trabaho na ito. Okay na mahalaga siya sa pananaw ng mga tao. So, meaning, kapag may trabaho na ito, hindi ka mamaliitin, mataas ang tingin sa'yo, malataas yung compensation mo, yes, it has its benefits, pero may negative side din siya. Okay? Though, wherein, one of its negative, not all the important jobs ay may high pay that leads to status inconsistency. For instance, the nurse, mataas ang pinag-aralan nila, okay, but person is stooped down to them kasi taga-alaga lang naman daw sila ng pasyente. Even the teacher, di ba? Ang taas ng pinag-aralan ng teacher pero ang baba ng kanilang salary. Okay? Ano pa? Example pa natin. For us to understand functionalist theory, let us analyze the important part of human body and the important duties and responsibilities of members of the family. So each organs of our body possess an important function or purpose in our body. Same goes with the members of the family. They need to perform their specific function. Now, if they fail to perform their function, dysfunction will happen. So therefore, in a point of view in our society, it is important that each situation, people in our society perform their functions. Otherwise, dysfunction will happen. Okay? Next. Now, for us to understand our topic, functionalism to social stratification, let us analyze and compare the nature of work. Okay, so a lawyer, doctor, and street sweepers, again, all of these professions are considered important. But then again, if you could come to think in terms of salary that they are receiving, this completely different. The salary of the doctor and the lawyer are completely different from the salary of street sweepers. This is because in our society, gives more rewards or gives more compensation to the nature of job that requires a higher level of knowledge, skills, educational qualification, which is being possessed and acquired by the work of a doctor and a lawyer. So, speaking of functionalist perspective, we would like to commend the important function that these two sectors provide, especially now during the time of pandemic, the health workers and the mass media. So now let's go for the social conflict theory. So stratification exists because it benefits certain groups of people who dominate and exploit others. Now, it highlights the interests that divide the people, and so in-advocate siya ni Karl Marx kasi nakita niya, okay, that the injustice and unequal treatment of the bourgeoisie or the upper class of the proletariat or the working class during the Industrial Revolution. So, okay, to understand the conflict theory, think of a tug of war, which you have two opposing forces. So let's say, for instance, the rich and the poor, or the employer or the employee. So the employer only have the wants to have a higher profit or income. So while the employee wants to have a higher salary, so therefore we have these two conflicting interests, which leads to conflict theory. Example also, okay, who will get the SAP or the social amelioration program? Only those who belong to the lower class or also those who belong to the middle class. Diba? So nagkakaroon ng conflict. Now, example, the implementation of the law in our country. If you belong to the upper class, okay, sino ba yung mga nasa upper class or the middle class? Say for example, you're a police officer and you have your mananita. Despite violating the quarantine protocols, hindi ka mapaparusahan. Pero kapag ang lumabag sa quarantine protocols ay belong sa lower class, asahan mo yan, mapaparusahan yan, makakasuhan yan. So now, the implementation of law to the lower and upper class is what we call conflict theory. Nagkaroon ng conflict. So, even though no man is above the law, so hindi natin matatanggal na nagkakaroon talaga ng conflict theory in terms of stratification. Now, let's go for this symbolic interactionism. So, understand stratification by looking at people's interaction and understandings in their daily lives. It examines how people social standing affects their everyday interactions. So most likely people interact same level of social classes. If you belong to upper class, you usually interact to the upper class. Same goes with the lower class. So one of the important concepts related to symbolic theory is the status symbol. Okay, status symbol class serve as the visible markers of person's stature and economic position. Example natin, ang preference mo lang sa phone is iPhone. Tapos, ang drinks mo lang or ang coffee mo lang is Starbucks, which leads you to snap effect. The status symbol leads you to snap effect. So, express preferences for goods because they are different from these commonly preferred. Meaning, hindi ka nakukonsume ng mga produktong kinukonsume ng mga nasa lower class and mababa. Okay? Kailangan angat ka o naiiba ka kapag okay, ang laptop mo, MacBook, okay? So in other words, for consumers who want to use exclusive products, is quality. Okay, privacy, it's quality. Example yung Chanel. That is what we call symbolic interactionism. So when we say social stratification, this is the layering of the society, the categorization of the status of the society. So that would be all for today. Thank you.